Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is the Las Vegas Clark County Library District Board of Trustees Finance and Audit Committee meeting today on Thursday, April 16th, 2020, starting at 3 o'clock. I believe we are at 3:05. Allison, can you please take roll call?
And some people can hear me fine, some people can't. So hopefully I won't have to scream. Chair Benavides.
Here.
Trustee Bilbray Axelrod. Trustee Wadley Mine.
Yes, fine.
Perfect. Trustee Wilson.
Here.
Trustee Rogers.
Present.
And Trustee Ortiz.
Present.
Trustee Foyt.
Present.
And Trustee Melendrez. Okay. We have a quorum. Chair Benavides.
I am here. Can you hear me now? Sorry, I don't. It's happened with my computer.
I understand. We've been having those problems. Yes, you have a quorum, Chair Benavides. I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Allison. Moving on to public comment. These were comments that were to be emailed to the board. Allison, are there any public comments that were submitted?
No.
Great. So we'll move on to the committee action to accept proposed agenda. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Allison, did you get that?
let me just confirm that it was Trustee Rogers who moved, and who seconded?
Shannon.
Trustee Bilbray Axelrod. Since several people are on the phone and several people are can't see all of this, I am going to ask that we talk, say your name, and Fred, don't forget to do the page numbers on your presentation.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on to new business. Business A, discussion regarding the financial year ending June 30th, 2021, tentative budget submitted to the Department of Taxation in preparation for the May 21st, 2020 budget public hearing. No action to be taken. Okay, Fred, are you doing the presentation?
Yes, I am.
Your floor.
I have the floor. Thank you. Let me first start about where we stand. Because of the way that everything happened this year, everything in our budget was going pretty well through the month of February. And there was no indication that this virus was going to have a long-term effect upon our projections for the year and for next year and the year end. Like most people and most government agencies, we were taken by surprise that this was going to be a pandemic, and that who would have ever guessed that we would have been shutting down the Las Vegas Strip and shutting down most of the businesses and government agencies, et cetera. I mean, who would ever guessed it? One of the things that I can say to you is this. We filed our budget without any indication to what degree and what impact we're going to have on it. But as I go through the budget, I can tell you where it would be mostly impact. We will be having a secondary meeting today after this budget meeting, and we would be discussing potential remedies that we can address. So certain questions I would probably say we would talk about regarding within the closed session. If you're taking a look at the schedule now, I assume that you could see it, but I don't know why it's showing the schedules. My slides on the left-hand side. But I'm hoping that you could see this, the schedule. I'm hoping that you could see the schedule. Gee, I'm hoping that you could see the schedule as a whole page. But other than that, I see it as a smaller scale, and then I see the pages to the left. Is that what you see for?
Yes, we can see it's a little off center, but otherwise we can see everything.
Okay. All righty. Because of the way this is being presented, I wish it was larger for you, but nothing I can do about it at the time, for the time being. If you look at this first schedule, this is what we submitted. We submitted the tentative budget based on the information that we got from the state of Nevada. When we got most of the information, we had gotten it at the end around March 24th. We had no clue that we thought we would only be out for 2 weeks, and that we would go in and file the budget with some updated information as of April 15th. The budget was due last Wednesday on the 15th. And yesterday. It was due yesterday. So we had already completed our budget, and we had to get our information for the tentative budget. So we figured that the easiest thing for us to do was submit the information to the state, and based on the revenue projections and the consolidated sales tax that they had provided to us. And that was done with the idea that we would only be shut down for 2 weeks, and that we would make whatever adjustments to the revenues that we would have to when we do it for the final public hearing for the budget in May, on the May 21st. And that would be our final budget. So the budget that you see today is not the budget that we're going to submit, but I'm telling you what we're submitting today. And then as we go through the budget, I would tell you exactly how it's going to be impacted. So as you can see, that the state sent us a budget that would probably being, and this is on page 1, it says total revenues, general fund. I'm looking at the third column, the spreadsheet, and it says variance FYE 2021 versus FYE 2020. And you can see the number of $4 million. And then below that was the consolidated sales tax of 1.3, and then all the way down to total, we were expecting $5.765 million. That was as of early March. That's what the revenue projections were, and now you have to take in consideration what the impact will be. So let's talk about what that impact is going to be. The largest taxpayers in Southern Nevada are to close in mid-March, and that's going to affect current and future property taxes, and assessed valuation is unknown. The CTAs for 2019 decreased by $1 million to $6 million. That we're currently going to receive between February, March, April, May, and June has been affected by the close down, and it will be closed down. We are expecting, because most of everything and most gaming properties and most restaurants and almost all businesses, since we're closed down to April 30th, that means that we would have been closed down for 6 weeks. And in some cases, there might be an extension to mid-May or to down further into the year of Labor Day. My bet is if we're still extended to mid-May, that there would be no huge number of tourists coming in for Memorial Day, probably most likely the 4th of July, and maybe go as far as September for Labor Day. So those are 3 major holidays where we would have larger than normal tourists in town, and that's where we gain the majority of our CTX. So the last thing that we're going to see is the CTX for 2020 to decrease by $4 to $6 million. That's just for the current fiscal year. So we usually get for the month of March, April, May, and June, we receive about $8 million, almost $2 million on average. And that's going to be cut from anywhere from 50% to maybe even 75%. I'm hoping that it's more like 55% that we would probably get of the $8 million, but it looks like based on what the economy is doing, that we're going to receive some amount, about 50% of what we normally do in the last 4 months. Property tax, we have received over 95% of what we're going to get. So any money that we're going to get after this is nothing that we can do for the time being. There's nothing we can do for the time being because we're in the process of the money that we have set aside at the beginning of the year between July and February that we have to put aside every year enough money, cash flow, to get us through the month of April, May, June, July, September, August, July, August, and then we receive the next check sometime about mid-July, September, late September. So we're actually living off of the income plus CTX, and CTX is going to be coming in a lot less than we expected. So we're actually living off part of our ending fund balance by the time we get our next major capital budget. So under the budget for the 2021 budget transfers $11 million to the general fund to the capital project, that will be decreased in our final budget. So let's take a look at the ending of June 30th, 2019 financial statements. And I want you to understand, where do we get the money that we transfer into our capital project fund? This is the most important things for the new people, for our new trustees. This is how we come up with the transfers that we have. For the trustees that's been on board for a while, you pretty much understand this, but we have about 3 new people that are on our trustees that really need to understand how we work our budget. If you look at I'm on the page 3, and it says schedule of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Budget.
Page 4.
Page 4 on you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. It is page 4. Okay, so if you look at it, for 2019, you could see what our original budget was. We had look at the column, the second column, which is the final budget. That's the one that really counts. As you could see, those numbers came from the state. They told us what our property tax would be, and they told us what our consolidated sales tax would be. And all the rest of the numbers from that point are numbers that we're in charge of. Charges for services, charges, fines and fees, et cetera. That's what that is, charges for services. Pretty much fines and fees, contracts with the jail, with the city of Las Vegas to provide library services. And then we have interest on our investment we can get back. And then miscellaneous, in this particular year, we were expecting maybe $765,000 in miscellaneous expenses, ranging anything from people giving us cash, donations, trust funds, et cetera. And in the next column, and if you go all the way down, you'll see total revenues were 66 that we budgeted for at the end of for the year 2019. And you can see expenditures. And I'm using this to show you the example of what would happen this year. Okay, and you can see that we budgeted $68.2 million, and then we're going to have excess expenditures over revenue of 1.6, and we're having other financing transfers to other fund. This $6.2 million goes to the capital project fund. And that's, and I'm going to go over greater detail in that later, but it goes to the capital project fund, to the 9 program funds that we have available. And you can see the net change in the fund balance, and then you can see the carry fund balance from the prior year of 16 million. And by the time we're done, we were budgeting actually $8.2 million. So at 2019, June 30th, last year at this time, we actually had $43 million in. and that's the third column. And then if you see in the CTX, which is intergovernmental revenue, consolidated sales tax, we actually got in 23 million, $23.4 million. And charging for service only came in at 1.3. But you can see we have a total of $68 million. And we wind up receiving pretty much $1.8 million more than usual. That's where the actual budget, actual receipt of revenue exceeded budget revenue by 2.83%. That's typical because most of the money that you see coming in that might come in is delinquent property taxes that were not collected in the prior year. And usually what happens is they come in later, and so we actually pick up the extra money more than what the property tax are for. So this is what we actually get. And you go to the third column, down into the expenditure portion of it, you can see that we have salaries, we have benefits, we have service and supplies and capital outlay, and you can see where we are pretty much on salaries and wages. You can see that we have savings of 1.5. That's still spending about 98% of the budget, 98 to 99% of the budget, and benefits are pretty much the same. And where we have the greatest savings is in service and supplies, and that depends on what happens during the years, whether we spend all the money or we can get around to it. But pretty much employees and managers, when I say employees, I mean managers and supervisors and EC members, have enough money to run their department without worrying about if they have enough to cover, but they have enough to run their department. But they're not to spend every dime because it's there. It took us over 10, 12 years to get people to stop thinking of spending every dime. That it just rolls over into the next year. Capital outlay is actually book purchases. That is strictly book purchases. And you can see that we spent $62.9 million. And then you can see that the revenues, if you go back up top, our total revenues were 68.5. And then if you look at the total expenditures at 62.9, we had, the next line would be excess of revenues over expenditures. We had $5.6 million savings. Of that, you could see the next line in parentheses, $6.2 million. We were able to transfer $6.2 million that year to the capital project fund. And that gave us a net change in fund balance of a negative $591,000. And that we had a beginning fund balance of $15.16 million. And then we ended up at the end of the year with $14.5 million. That ending fund balance percentage is 23%. That is a great, healthy ending fund balance that we are trying to maintain from year to year to help us get past certain catastrophic events, just like the one that we're in now. So just to give you, back to the third column where it says excess of revenues over expenditures, if we don't have savings from our expenditures, from revenue over expenditures, we have no money or cash or funds to be able to transfer to the capital project. Once that number goes down, then that's it. We have no ability to do anything, and then it would have to come strictly out of the general fund. So going to the next page. As you can see, our expenditures for this fiscal year with the general fund budgeted at, and I'm looking at the gray column. I'm looking at total expenditures and it says general fund. And I'm looking at the gray column and it says 73,157,000. And then I'm looking at the column to the left of it, which is 72.79. Our budget only increased by $362,000, but there's a reason for that. Last year, we were debating whether we were going to fund opening up a branch in the Meadows Mall, and we were buying a bus, a library bus to travel around the Clark County areas out in the outer areas. That didn't happen, so that had cost of employee salaries. So that didn't happen. So when we do this year's budget, we've already accounted for it, and in some of the savings and increase in costs in this fiscal year has been absorbed that budget. As you can see, the special revenue funds, the gift fund, the grant fund, those are funds that we get money from donate. The gift fund is pretty much donations. We put a number in there so that whatever we get in gift funds, we have the ability to expend it for that year. If we get $1 million in the gift fund, we can only legally spend $815,000. If we get a little bit less than that, then we're okay. We can get up to what we get. The same thing for the grant fund. We may put down $1.8 million, but we may not get all the $1.8 million, but we wanted to make sure we have enough in that fund to be able to expend whatever we do get. If we put it down below, we won't be able to expend it, and then we'll lose that portion of the grant. Under the capital projects, there's a number of projects that we will talk about in great detail, especially during the public hearing in May. We'll go into greater detail on the capital projects, and that's where we expend, that's where the transfers go to. If we don't have transfers into the capital project, we have no expenditures. That $13.5 million that you see in capital project came from savings over the last several years, I should say. And then the debt service, that is residual monies that come into the debt service. I'm sorry, that we spend from the debt service, but it's negligible. That's the money that was delinquent property tax assessed valuation from assessed valuation. Moving on to the next slide. Top of it says total expenditures continue. Expected savings of $6 million in the current FY 19-20 budget will not be written. This impact will impact the amount of transfer to the capital fund projects, major programs. We have for our new trustees, we have at least 9 program replacement where we transfer money out of the general fund, and it's pretty much our savings every year, into the capital project funds. These funds are used to go into these projects. As you can see below, I have library services platform replacement. That is the major software that we use for checking out books, checking in books, fines and fees, charging people fines and fees, etc. Technology replacement and upgrades. That's IT. Those are the computers. The fact that we're using this software today to do this this video conferencing, this is what IT does. Building and repair and maintenance. This is general services, Steve Rice's area. This is for actually building, repair, and maintenance, painting the buildings, replacing the HVAC. HVAC system can cost as much as $300,000, depending on the size of the building, to replace. And Steve, our director, needs to have the availability to have those resources available to do whatever emergency replacement and repairs and annual month-to-month repairs, the maintenance that we need. Just to give you an example, when we set up this fund, this was one or two funds that we set up. The very first year, we put in about $500,000 or $600,000, and we had an HVAC system to go out at the main branch of the downtown library. It cost us $300,000 to get it replaced. And so it came in handy. We didn't have to fight and try to reduce the general fund and see where we could come up with the cash to do it. The Capital Construction Fund. This is where we do all of our major construction. If we don't have money here, we can't build new libraries. We can't do renovations. And the most that's going to affect in the Capital Construction Fund will be, I'll get to that. I'll get that later, Trustee Keith. The number of capital construction is just, it was just be put in parentheses so I remember to make sure we put those numbers in. It's not a negative. So the capital construction fund is $8.4 million. That's what we have in each line item in our master program. That's what we have for each line item in our master program. So each one of these programs I'm talking about, that's how much cash we have. So the library materials budget, when we open up a new library, we usually put money there so that we're not fighting with the library purchases in the general fund. Also, vehicle purchase, replacement, and maintenance, that's in the general services. That's the trucks and cars that we use to make deliveries between libraries. And they have to be replaced. Before we set this fund up, we had automobiles that were like 25 years old. And I used to constantly make jokes that we had classic cars and we should be able to put them on the market and sell them. But we have bigger trucks. We have better maintenance trucks for the facility people to use. And since we set this up, we have to be able to replace and repair and fix these vehicles as we go along. Furniture purchase and replacement. That's something that people don't realize, that the library furnishings do wear out. And so that we do have to replace them, and et cetera. Financial services, that's the accounting department. We maintain, we're over all of the copiers, branch copiers, staff copiers, and the public copiers in the district. Our public copiers bring in about $50,000 a year. I think we're still there. And then we also have cash registers. So we maintain the cash registers and the public and staff copiers. Another program is community engagement program and venues. They're the ones that are over the performing art theaters and the meeting rooms and the equipment that they need. They need to keep this equipment up to date, which are basically audio equipment, visual equipment, and theatrical equipment. And these are the types of stuff they have. The curtains in the theaters eventually after 20, 30 years have to be replaced. And so we do, that's where they have the money and the cash out of this particular fund. Moving on to the next slide. Apparently that's where we stand. I can't. Okay, that's it. That's pretty much it. That's the end of my presentation.
Yeah, I'm gonna, if everybody has questions, I'm just gonna go down the list so that we can do it in an orderly fashion, since some of us are online and some of us are via phone. So with that said, can I open it up for questions? Trustee Bill Bray Axelrod, is there any questions?
Not at this time.
Trustee Monier, any questions?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Trustee Wilson?
Not at this time.
Trustee Rogers?
The only submitting an updated budget based on CAS COVID-19. Did you mention how
Trustee
soon?
Rogers, can you start your question over again? You were cutting in and out. I don't know if that was just my connection or for everyone else, but can you start your question once again?
Sure. My question is, I know during the presentation, it was going to be revising the budget based on the COVID-19 impact, but I may have missed it, but what's the date or when we would have that revised budget submitted or presented to the board again?
You're going to have what they call a public hearing, and the public hearing is on May 21st. That's the day that all entities have to have a public hearing by that day. Our date is on May 21st. I think it's May 21st, Thursday, and we would go a more detailed presentation on exactly what we're presenting to the state, what we're sending to the state, and we're going to be talking about whatever reductions how we came up with the reductions and whatever, and how we came to meet our revenue shortfall and how we going. That's that particular time. But on April the 28th, I think we have another meeting that we'll go through this budget again, but we're going to go into greater detail later on today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will move on to Trustee Ortiz. Questions?
Good afternoon. Fred, did I hear you say we're looking at a potential $46 million budget deficit?
Potential $46 million budget deficit for this current fiscal year.
correct, for this current fiscal year.
Yes.
And so then our next meeting, we'll have a presentation on where we should suspend, cut, all of that. Is that correct?
We'll have in the next presentation, we'll show how we're going to adjust our budget and what the areas will be.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next trustee, trustee Rainmaker.
No questions at this time, thank you.
I'm not sure if trustee Melendres, is he on the line? Hearing not from him. Trustee Foyt, is she on the line?
I am.
Any questions?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Trustee Francis. I don't believe she's on the line. So that is all of our trustees addressing any questions. This is not for action. It's only for public hearing. Correct. To move on to the next item. Hearing that, I will go ahead and move on to the next item. Discussion and possible committee action authorizing staff to join her into the Clark County contract with Main Street Capital Advisors for investment advisory services. I'll send it back to Fred.
We have approximately 300,000 for investment, and that fund has been depleted over the years. We started out as much as 20 million or more, but we started using it for construction funding and et cetera, so it's down. And we have a good rate that we've been working with Main Street for over 10 to 15 years. And they are with the county, so the county uses them and we piggyback off their contract. It's a good rate for us, and we've had good responses. They stay in contact with us, they bring us up to date, and they let us know. I would like to continue to join her on the county contract. There was a statement that says I think we said something about that we got better rates than the county, but I think we pay a very small percentage of 1% of 1% to manage this account. So it's a very small amount. So we get a fairly good rate.
Is that the end of your presentation?
That's the end of my presentation.
Once again, I will go through the trustees to see if there are any questions. Trustee Bill Bray Oxeraw, any questions? Hearing none, I'll move on. Trustee Wadley Munier, any questions?
Sorry, no, I'm sorry, that was Shannon. No, I'm good.
Trustee Wadley Munier, any questions? And then I'll move on to the next trustee, Trustee Wilson, any questions?
Just quickly, do we know what the average return we've gotten from them over the last decade is?
Not at this hand. I can get back to you and give you year over year.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you forward that to all trustees for information purposes?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Oh, but let me say this. That's going to be very difficult because the balances that we have, when I say we can get it, but the balances are not static. It's not like we had $20 million in there straight. It's like a declining.
It's a time-weighted return. It's
Okay.
an advisement firm. They'll be able to pull time-weighted. So just ask for time-weighted.
Okay, that's correct. I just want to make sure that the other trustees understand the information they were getting.
Thank you.
Perfect. We'll move on to Trustee Rogers. Any questions?
No questions from me at this time.
Trustee Ortiz, any questions?
None at this time, Chair.
Moving on to Trustee Rainmaker, any questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Melendres, not sure if he got back on the line. Trustee Melendres? Moving on to Trustee Foyt, any questions?
None at this time, thank you.
Moving on to Trustee Francis Drake, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We will, let's see, do we need a motion on this, or was this just for advisory to the board, correct?
I think we have a motion on that, don't we, Felipe?
Got to recommend, and it's at the bottom of the agenda item. Okay.
Got it here. This is Trustee Wilson.
Trustee Wilson, can you please read your motion into the record?
Motion to forward the board of Trustees for approval to authorize staff to join onto Clark County's contract with FHN Financial Main Street Advisors LLC advisory services through December 31st, 2022, and to authorize staff to extend the contract for up to 2 one-year periods, subject to funding being available and the contractor continuing to meet performance standards outlined in the contract agreement.
Perfect, thank you. I appreciate it. Can I get a second from my trustee with a name?
Second from
Trustee
Trustee
Boyd.
Rogers.
Trustee Rogers, thank you. I appreciate that. All those in favor say aye. Allison, would you like us to go one by one for the record?
I think that's probably a good idea, so we're on the record.
Okay, we'll just say for ayes, we'll go down my list. Trustee Bilberry Axelrey,
Aye.
Trustee Wadley Munier,
She may, hang on, I'm looking at something. Robin, are you still on?
we'll go ahead and move on, and we'll have to get back to her if we need a yay on her. Trustee Wilson,
Aye.
Trustee Rogers,
Aye.
Trustee Ortiz.
Aye. Aye.
Now, those are the trustees on this committee. Do we need to go down further on the trustee list, Allison?
You have 4,
I, including myself, that would be 5.
so you're fine, this passes.
Motion passes. Thank you. We will move on to our public comment, and these were comments to be emailed to the board. Allison, were there any emailed comments?
No public comments, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Thank you. We will go ahead and move on to adjournment. I know that we will be back online for our 5 o'clock meeting. Allison, any housekeeping items?
At this time, no. As I say, WebEx was having an issue. We'll let you know if we hear about any other issues. And I think we're all set.
Perfect. I'm going to ask, since all or most board members are on the line now, can we try to get online at least maybe 5 minutes prior to the meeting, if not 10, just to make sure we're all online and can start on time? I'm sure Chair would appreciate that.
4.
Will. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Get everybody back at 5.